So why on earth would you go there, of all places? What's wrong with you? You crazy or something? Man, they're gonna lock you up and throw away the key. Throw away the key. Well, actually, it was fine. I went. I spent time there. Nothing happened to me. It was quite standard, actually, your standard affair for traveling abroad. In many ways, it was quite boring. I'm a boring guy with boring stories. But I will say this, if you're thinking about going, you can go. There's no law saying you can't. I understand if someone has hang-ups about going or they have their own reasons for not going. I get that. But if you want to go, you can go. Everything is fine. Don't believe everything that you read. Now I'm probably going to ramble on for like 20 minutes explaining who I am and the whole story, how this whole thing started. So, I started learning Russian back in 2020, January 2020. The last fleeting moments of normal life before shit kind of hit the fan there with the pandemic. And early on, I realized it was something that I really liked. I really enjoyed the Russian language. It wasn't just a flash in the pan. It wasn't just something I did for a few weeks. It was pretty serious. And when you're serious about learning a second language, one of your goals is to visit the country or a place or countries where the language is spoken. Pretty logical, right? Luckily for Russian learners, we have a lot of options. If you don't want to go to Russia, I would recommend Central Asia as probably your best bet. Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan. The Baltics, okay. The Caucasus, okay. But Central Asia, I think, is your best bet. But that's another topic. And yeah, since 2020, I have made decent progress with the Russian language. I would say I'm conversationally fluent. I have a bunch of friends in Russia and in other Russian-speaking countries. And this was my motivation for going to Russia, to practice the language, to be surrounded by the language, to meet my friends whom I've met online over the years. And that's really it. I went there for the language and for my friends. Okay. So I'm a Canadian, and the first step for me was to get approved for a Russian visa. This was very easy. The whole process took about 3 weeks. I went to the Russian consulate website. I filled out the visa form. I printed off the form. I wrote a little letter explaining who I am and why I want to go to Russia. I literally wrote I literally wrote like one paragraph. I went and got little passport style pictures taken of my face, and I got my passport, and I got all this stuff ready, and I mailed it off to a visa center in Toronto, and the visa center is like the middleman. They then sent my documents to the consulate, and a few weeks later, I got my passport back with a Russian visa, a tourist visa inside. The Russian visa is like a big sticker. It takes up a whole page of your passport. And with that visa, I could stay in Russia for 30 days. This whole thing costed maybe close to 500 Canadian dollars. And like I said, it was very easy. There's actually a good blog that has all this information about applying for visas and how to, use money, how to buy things in Russia, what cards to use, advice for like booking hotels. So I'll probably leave that in the description, a really useful blog for the 10 other people who are interested in going to Russia. There's a decent amount of information available to us. And then I took out some American money because our cards don't work there. I took 2,000 US dollars with me. And if it wasn't for a flight to Vladivostok and back, I could have spent significantly less money on this trip. You could probably spend a month in Russia for like $1,000 if you stayed in hostels, if you stayed in like Moscow, St. Petersburg, some golden ring cities, maybe go to Kazan for a weekend. You could probably spend $1,000, maybe even less for a whole month. But I spent 2,000. So I arrived to Russia. I flew into Sheremetyevo airport from Tashkent, Uzbekistan. And, I watched videos just like this one, and I had heard stories about people who went to Russia and they got questioned at the border. The border guards looked through their phones and spent 3 hours just asking them question after question. And I was mentally prepared that something like that might happen. Nothing like that happened. In fact, everything went a bit too easily. I got to the little desk area, whatever you want to call it. They had a little touch screen. I, put all my fingerprints on it. They took my fingerprints. They scanned my face. The woman is looking at my passport. She has like a little magnifying glass. She's checking my visa and my passport. And then she looks at me and in Russian, she says, "Do you speak Russian?" Yeah, a little bit. Canada is a very tolerant country, right? Yeah. Here you go. And that was it. I was in. It took like 5 minutes to get into Russia. And that was it. I hopped on a express train to Moscow towards the city center. And then I walked to a hostel that I had reserved a bed at. I didn't actually stay at that hostel. I don't know what's wrong with me. Sometimes I guess I get overcome with anxiety or I get a bad vibe and I just like freeze. Whatever the reason, I didn't go into that hostel. I just walked around Moscow all night. I even slept on some park benches for a little bit. It was the end of July. It was warm. It was fine. Moscow was clean. Moscow was safe. There were no issues, but okay. We're off to a pretty bad start. The next day I woke up. I went down to a mall. I wanted to buy a SIM card. I bought the SIM card, but the guy told me, in order to activate this SIM card, you have to go down to a place. You have to give them, they're going to take a picture of your face. They're going to take a recording of your voice. You have to give them a, official translated copy of your passport. You have to do all this stuff just to activate the SIM card. And whether it be laziness or just, knowing that I could probably do it a different way, I decided not to do that. And what happened is a friend just bought me a SIM card. And that was the end of that. So if you can, use an eSIM or get somebody to buy you a SIM card. My phone is too old. eSIMs wouldn't work. So a friend bought me a SIM card. But after that, I went back to that hostel that I had the reservation with. And I think it was there that I was reading about like entrance into Russia. I don't know exactly how I found out about this. Maybe I always knew it in the back of my mind before I even arrived in Russia. But either way, I found out that when you arrive at Russia, in Russia, you're supposed to be given a migration card. This is a little piece of paper. It's about the size of a page in your passport. And you need this card in order to register yourself as a tourist in Russia and in order to be legally in the country as a tourist. Now, registering is supposedly easy. You just go to any hotel, you show them this migration card, and they are able to register you. That's it. That's all you have to do. When I arrived at the airport and went through the border control, nobody gave me this piece of paper. And then I was reading about this piece of paper, this migration card, and reading that, oh, if you don't have it, you're here illegally, blah, blah, blah. You could be fined. You could be kicked out of Russia. And when you leave Russia, you're supposed to give this card back. to the guard, and I'm thinking, god damn it. It's always something. And yes, without this card, technically, supposedly, you're not even able to book hotel rooms if you're a foreigner. So I read all this while I'm sitting in the hostel. And yeah, I went to that hostel and I talked to the woman at reception. And at first I just asked, do you have a bed for tonight? And she said, oh, I'll let you know. Just go sit down. So I go sit down in the little common area. Tiny little hostel. It was kind of a shitty hostel. There's a picture of President Putin on the wall behind me, which is just funny because I never seen that in Canada. Well, obviously, yeah, I never seen Putin's picture in Canada, but I never saw Trudeau hanging on a wall or Stephen Harper. Their pictures, just random. And there's some little kid like showing me his toys, and I'm not good with Canadian kids. Like this little Russian kid's like showing me, he's playing with my backpack with his like car riding on my backpack. I'm just sitting there like, yeah, kruta, kruta. And obviously I'm tired as hell. I just slept on park benches and walked around all night. So the woman comes back. She says, yeah, we have a bed. And I said, cool. By the way, can you register me? And she said, no. I thought, what the hell, no? I thought any hotel or hostel should be able to do this for you. I mean, she couldn't have anyways because I didn't have the card, but I figured I'd ask. Anyways, it didn't matter that day because my friends came from a neighboring city. We had lunch in Moscow. We walked around. We went back to their apartment, and that's where they bought me the SIM card. And then I went to a different city, Tula, and I told my friend about this migration card thing, and she figured out where we can go to get me a new one. We go down to the place. There's even a sign on the door, and it says something like, for migration cards or migration issues, whatever, come on Wednesday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., for example. And we were there on a Tuesday. We were there the day before. But my friend said, hey, let's just go inside anyways and ask. Because, like I said, legally you can't book hotel rooms without this. So we go inside, and we're in this little office, and there's a stern-looking man, probably in his 40s, sitting behind a desk. He's got that baby blue shirt on with the little... He might have had the little shoulder things, but maybe not. But he had that classic Russian baby blue shirt on.
Меня здесь все знают и все боятся.
And he was a mean, sour individual. And he scared the hell out of me because... You know, I never bought into all this stuff about, oh, if you go to Russia, they're going to send you to the front lines, they're going to arrest you, blah, 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 this, that, and the other thing. I never bought into all that. I thought, sure, it could happen. But I took the mindset of, okay, don't F around and you won't find out. But what someone else considers as effing around is, you know, maybe subjective. So I'm here in this little office, and my friend's explaining the situation to this guy. And before we went in there, my friend told me, she said, pretend you don't speak Russian. Just pretend you don't speak Russian. And I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. So she's explaining to him, and he instantly has an attitude. He's like, oh, so what? It's not my problem. Well, what's he supposed to do? He can't book hotel rooms. What do you want him to sleep on the street? Like, tough shit. What, this guy doesn't know where he is? He doesn't know the rules? Why'd he come here? Huh? And just had an attitude on him, like, screw you, man. Like, and he scared the hell out of me because I'm thinking, like I said before, all these horror stories, like the basketball player who got arrested and detained for months on end. And you start thinking, oh shit, this is my moment. This will get blown out of proportion. I'm going to get fined. I'm going to get deported. I'm going to get kicked out of the country. This is going to get blown way out of proportion. That's what I'm thinking in that moment. And towards the end, he kind of calmed down, kind of. And he was annoyed the whole time. But at the end, he was like, okay, just come back tomorrow. And we go back to my friend's car, and she's like, how are you? How are you? And I'm like, not good. And she says, okay, just calm down. It'll be all right. And we went back the next day, and there was a young woman working there. She took my fingerprints again, picture of my face. I signed a little card, and they gave me a migration card. So, yeah, like I said, supposedly you need this migration card to book hotel rooms, to stay at hostels if you're a foreigner. But half the places I stayed at didn't even ask me for this migration card. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe, Ivan in Nizhny Novgorod might not know about this migration card if he just works at some little hostel. I don't know. It seems like a mess. It seems like a bureaucratic nightmare. I don't know. And when I went to leave Russia, like I said, you're supposed to return this card at the passport control. I gave my card back. The woman's looking at it. She's like, "Oh, this is kind of weird. You landed in Moscow, but this card's from Tula. The dates are a bit off. Like, what happened?" And she called somebody. She called her supervisor, maybe. And I'm thinking, oh, God, here we go again. They talk on the phone for a minute or two. Then she's like, okay, you can go. So I don't know. It seems like a mess to me. Just be careful if you go. Make sure you have this card. And if you have it, at least everything should be okay. But, I mean, yeah, it's a mess. After that, that was it. That was my big scare. That was it. Turned out to be nothing in the end. I went to St. Petersburg after that. And in St. Petersburg, I got a Russian bank card with T-Bank, formerly known as Tinkoff. And that was easy. I went online. I applied for the card. The next day, they came and met me. We met at Rostix, which is now Russian KFC. And they gave me the card. And that was really cool because T-Bank had ATMs all over Russia. And you can put American money into some of these ATMs. Not all of them, but most of them you can put American money in. And it will convert it right to rubles and deposit the amount into your account. So I didn't have to go to banks anymore to exchange money. I can now pay with my card. And, of course, that made everything easier. I now booked hotel rooms online and train tickets and plane tickets and bus tickets. I used Yandex Puteshestvia, Yandex Travel. That's where I booked basically everything. All my train tickets, bus tickets, hotels, hostels on that one site. So it's really convenient. And yeah, I just traveled from city to city. I walked around. I met up with my friends. Nothing really happened. It was a good trip. Nothing went wrong. It started off bad. Like, I guess those first 3 days were kind of like, I don't know how this is gonna turn out. But after that, it was smooth sailing. I'm a boring guy with boring stories. I didn't really do anything. I just walked around. But even walking around was nice, and meeting up with friends was nice. And I made videos while I was in Russia. There are 7 videos on this channel in Russia. The videos are in Russian, but you can check them out if you want to see what I saw. Or, Russia's a big famous country. Lots of people have gone there. Lots of people have filmed travel vlogs there or travel documentaries there. But yeah, if you're interested in going, you can definitely go. It's fine. The little extra hurdles that you have to go through, or hoops, I guess, that you have to go through in order to visit, like, the sanctions. So you have to get a Russian bank card now or bring cash. The SIM card thing, which eSIMs maybe work. I don't know. VPNs, make sure you have a good VPN because YouTube doesn't work anymore. A lot of sites are being blocked. You need a good VPN. But it's still accessible. It's not like, North Korea or something. Or maybe it will be like that one day. Who knows? I don't know. But Russia's fine. There's a big elephant in the room here, the whole conflict. And just walking around, you wouldn't really have any idea that anything is going on. It doesn't seem like a country that's involved in a military conflict. Yeah, I didn't sit around and watch Russian news or Russian TV channels. Like, God knows what they're talking about on those channels. I don't know. But just walking around the city, yeah, people, of course, are going about their day-to-day lives. No one is living under the fear of anything, really. But this is not a political video. I don't really want to get into that. But it's interesting, you walk around and everywhere, and in every city. Like, I was in Primorsky Krai, which is like near Japan, like almost as far east as you can go in Russia. And out there's like little signs like, "Hey, join the army, be a hero, make X amount of rubles a year." Everywhere you will see billboards, "Join the army, be a hero." It's everywhere. Oh, I got a bunch of light coming in. Russia is a bit more diverse than you might think, I guess. And maybe it's just because before I went to Russia, I spent time in Central Asia. And Central Asia is very not diverse. 90% of the population is like ethnic Kazakh, Kyrgyz, Uzbek people. And you see like, pockets of Indian people in Almaty, for example. And I always feel racist for like pointing this out, because someone might say to me, "Oh, you only see color, huh?" But I'm not racist. You have eyes, you look around, you make observations. When I saw a black person in Kazakhstan, it was like, whoa, cool. Wonder what his story is. Why is he here? Interesting. Because it almost never happened. But I was surprised how many black people were in Russia, how many Asian people, Indian people, and not just in Moscow, like in the provincial cities and in smaller cities. Russia's a bit more diverse than you think. And, it always kind of has been that way. I mean, within Russia, there's so many republics and they all have like their own little language and their own little culture that's kind of, unique. But they look like, just white normal Russian people, but they have their own language and culture. And there are like Aboriginal people like we have in Canada who look totally different, but they're Russian citizens too. Anyways, I could ramble on and on and on. That's my boring tale. If you want to go, go. I guess that's all I have to say. So, всем пока.